The orbital docking bay of the Aurelian Defense Fleet Academy hung in the void like a massive metallic ring, its exterior dotted with blinking navigational lights and docked vessels of various configurations. The structure rotated slowly at the edge of the Cyrex cluster, where swirls of stellar dust painted the backdrop of space in hues of violet and deep blue. Inside Docking Bay 12, Nova Mary squinted at her assignment tablet, double-checking the berth number against the faded hull designation before her. "Vanguard Rust," she whispered to herself, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "Bay 12D." The freighter loomed before her, an ungainly vessel with mismatched hull plates and outdated thrusters. Its port side bore scorch marks from atmospheric friction, while patches of actual rust, a rarity in space, clung to its loading ramps. The sight made her heart sink, but she maintained her composure, straightening the collar of her cadet uniform. As the first Terran pilot assigned to the Aurelian fleet in over a decade, she couldn't afford to show disappointment. A cluster of alien officers stood near the boarding ramp, their scaled skin catching the harsh bay lights. The tallest among them, a Saurian with commander insignia, noticed her approach and flicked a forked tongue in amusement. "You must be mistaken, Terran," he said, mandibles clicking between words. "Service personnel entrance is 2 levels down." Nova held up her credentials. "Cadet Nova Maris, reporting for pilot assignment on freight vessel Vanguard Rust. 4 standard cycles before inaugural supply run to Relay Station Epsilon." The group fell silent before erupting into chittering laughter. A Viridian officer with luminous eyes stepped forward, her voice a harmonizing of multiple tones. "They assigned a human to pilot this scrap heap. The Academy must truly be desperate, or perhaps they don't care if this particular vessel returns." Nova's jaw tightened, but she kept her expression neutral. "I graduated top of my class in propulsion mechanics and navigational plotting. I look forward to demonstrating my capabilities." "On that?" The commander gestured dismissively at the freighter. "The Vanguard series was obsolete when your species was still burning fossil fuels. Even our maintenance droids refused to service it." Nova shouldered her duffel bag. "Then I'll have plenty of opportunities to implement improvements." "Commander." "Torvak," he supplied, crossing his arms. "Chief Engineer Torvak, and there will be no improvements without proper authorization through 15 channels of command approval. The Aurelian fleet doesn't operate on Terran improvisation." Swallowing her retort, Nova nodded and proceeded up the boarding ramp. The laughter followed her into the ship's dimly lit corridor, fading only when the airlock sealed behind her with a wheezing hiss. The interior of the Vanguard Rust smelled of stale air recycled too many times, with undertones of leaked hydraulic fluid and the faint ozone of overworked electronics. Nova ran her fingers along a wall panel, collecting a film of grime on her fingertips. The ship had potential. She decided it just needed someone who could see past its current condition. After stowing her personal effects in the cramped pilot's quarters, Nova headed straight for the engine room. The corridor leading there was narrow, forcing her to duck under hanging conduits that leaked condensation in steady drips. When she finally reached the engine compartment, the automatic doors stuttered halfway open before jamming. Nova wedged herself through the gap and froze at the sight before her. The propulsion system was a chaotic amalgamation of outdated technology, an original Vanguard gravitational drive paired with at least 3 generations of patch repairs. Cables snaked across the floor in tangled bundles, while coolant pipes formed a maze overhead. The central reactor core, which should have emitted a steady blue glow, instead pulsed in an erratic rhythm of sickly yellow. "Well," Nova muttered to herself, setting down her toolkit, "Grandfather would call this an engineer's playground." She pulled out a handheld scanner and began systematically evaluating each system. Her grandfather, Elias Maris, had been a pioneer in harmonic drive technology, work that the major powers had largely dismissed as theoretical. Before his death, he'd entrusted Nova with his research, including schematics for a prototype that had never been built. Hours passed as Nova mapped the ship's systems, creating a detailed three-dimensional model on her personal datapad. By ship's night cycle, she had identified 17 critical failures waiting to happen and 39 inefficiencies that could be optimized. More importantly, she'd discovered that the Vanguard's archaic design actually shared fundamental architectural principles with her grandfather's theoretical engine. "Yeah, this isn't coincidence," she whispered, comparing the schematics. The Vanguard was based on early Terran designs that influenced grandfather's work. A notification chirped on her tablet. Dinner in the mess hall. Nova reluctantly set aside her diagrams and made her way through the ship's warren-like corridors. In the small dining area, she found 2 crew members already seated, a slender luminari with translucent skin who introduced herself as Lieutenant Sora, communications officer, and a stocky mechanoid who served as the ship's quartermaster but offered no name. "So you're really going to pilot this wreck?" Lieutenant Sora asked, her skin glowing faintly with bioluminescent patterns that shifted with her emotions. Currently, they displayed skepticism. Most officers request transfers within a day of assignment. Nova spooned the bland nutrient paste that passed for dinner. "I'm not most officers." "Obviously," the luminary replied, her patterns shifting to something like amusement. "Most officers aren't Terran." "Is that going to be a problem?" Nova asked directly. Lieutenant Sora's glow patterns briefly flashed in surprise. "Not for me. I've worked with 3 humans before. They were resourceful, if unconventional." She glanced at the silent mechanoid. "Quartermaster doesn't care what species you are, as long as you don't waste supplies." The mechanoid grunted in apparent agreement, finishing its meal and departing without a word. "Friendly bunch," Nova commented. "Small crew complement," Sora explained. "Just us, plus Chief Engineer Torvak, who rarely leaves the command deck, and Engineer Eliax, who practically lives in the maintenance shafts." Her patterns shifted again. "Fair warning, Torvak has filed 7 complaints about Terran integration into the fleet. He'll be watching for any mistake." Nova nodded. "Noted." After dinner, rather than returning to her quarters, Nova made her way back to the engine room. This time, she carried her grandfather's data crystal containing his complete research. If she was going to make this ship spaceworthy in 4 cycles, she would need to work through the night. The engine room was dark when she arrived, illuminated only by the sickly pulses of the reactor core. Nova activated her work light and wedged open the reluctant door, only to freeze when she heard movement from within. She wasn't alone. A figure emerged from behind the primary coolant manifold, short in stature with 4 arms and a face dominated by compound eyes that reflected her light in prismatic patterns. The insectoid wore engineering coveralls stained with lubricant and coolant fluid. "You must be Eliax," Nova said, lowering her light. The engineer's mandibles clicked rapidly. "And you're the Terran pilot everyone's talking about. What are you doing in my engine room at sleep cycle?" Nova considered her options. Regulations prohibited unauthorized modifications, but the ship was barely functional. Without improvements, their mission would likely fail. "Preliminary diagnostics," she said carefully. "The propulsion system needs extensive work before we can safely depart." Eliax's compound eyes studied her, then the toolkit and datapad she carried. "Diagnostics don't require a Class 7 reconfiguration toolkit or a personal computing device with extended memory capacity." Nova met the engineer's gaze. How familiar are you with harmonic resonance propulsion theory? Theoretical nonsense. Iliax clicked dismissively. Proposed by your Terran scientists but never successfully implemented. Nova activated her datapad, projecting her grandfather's schematics beside the Vanguard's engine layout. Look at the structural similarities. This ship's design is primitive, but it's built on the same principles. With modifications, we could increase efficiency by at least 300%. Iliax's antennae twitched forward in interest. Impossible. The power requirements alone would be manageable if we reconfigure the quantum matrix to operate on harmonic frequencies rather than brute force output. Nova interrupted, highlighting sections of the schematic. My grandfather's research proves it's possible. The engineer was silent for a long moment, compound eyes shifting between the schematics and Nova's face. Finally, he spoke. His clicking softer now. Torvak would never approve such modifications. I'm not suggesting we ask permission, Nova replied. I'm suggesting we make improvements that will ensure mission success. Iliax's mandibles worked silently for a moment. Show me these modifications in detail. I'll decide then. Through the ship's night cycle, Nova explained her grandfather's theories, demonstrating the mathematics behind harmonic resonance and how it could be applied to the Vanguard's outdated systems. By morning, Iliax was convinced. Your species has always had unconventional approaches, the engineer admitted. But your equations are sound. I can assist with the physical modifications, but we'll need components that aren't in inventory. Nova smiled. I brought some with me. The rest we can repurpose from non-essential systems. If Torvak discovers this, he won't, Nova assured him, not until we've proven it works. Over the next 3 cycles, Nova and Iliax worked in secret. During day cycles, they performed standard maintenance tasks that wouldn't raise suspicion. At night, they implemented Nova's modifications, integrating her grandfather's harmonic drive concepts into the existing propulsion system. They cannibalized parts from redundant systems, reprogrammed control interfaces, and rerouted power conduits. Nova's hands blistered from the physical labor, while Iliax's exoskeleton developed stress fractures from contorting into tight spaces. Yet, the work progressed steadily. On the 3rd day, as Nova was recalibrating the quantum matrix beneath the reactor housing, the engine room doors slid open with a screech. Heavy footsteps approached, and Nova knew immediately who had arrived. Cadet Maris, Chief Engineer Torvak's voice boomed across the chamber. Explain why the primary power distribution grid is showing fluctuations beyond normal parameters. Nova emerged from beneath the housing, wiping grime from her face. Routine calibrations. Chief Engineer, the grid hasn't been properly balanced in years. Torvak's reptilian eyes narrowed, vertical pupils contracting to thin slits. Calibrations do not require dismantling critical junctions. He gestured to several open panels around the room. What have you done to my ship? Your ship was barely functional, Nova replied, standing her ground. I've improved efficiency in the systems I'm certified to work on. Without authorization, Torvak stepped closer, using his height to intimidate. Do you think Aurelian protocols exist for entertainment? Every modification must be documented, tested in simulation, and approved through proper channels. Which would take months, Nova countered. We launch tomorrow. Perhaps you should have considered that before tampering with systems beyond your understanding. Torvak hissed. I will be documenting this violation and recommending your immediate... The ship-wide comm system crackled to life. All personnel report to command deck for pre-mission briefing. Lieutenant Sora's voice announced, Departure scheduled in 18 hours. Torvak's scales flushed with anger. This isn't finished. Terran, I will inspect every centimeter of these engines before departure. He turned to leave, then paused. Where is Engineer Eliax? As if summoned. Eliax emerged from a maintenance shaft near the ceiling. Checking environmental systems. Chief, recyclers were showing irregularities. Torvak glared between them suspiciously before departing, the doors grinding shut behind him. Eliax dropped to the floor. He knows something is different. But he doesn't know what, Nova replied. We need to finish the harmonic resonator installation tonight. It's the key component. He'll be watching now, Eliax warned. Nova nodded. Then we'll have to be more careful. The pre-mission briefing was brief and to the point. Vanguard Rust would transport emergency medical supplies and replacement parts to Relay Station Epsilon, a remote outpost that had reported critical shortages. The journey would take approximately 36 hours through a sector known for pirate activity, though attacks had decreased in recent months. Throughout the briefing, Torvak watched Nova with undisguised suspicion. When crew assignments were distributed, he made a point of altering the schedule. Engineer Eliax will remain on the command deck during the mission, he announced. I will personally monitor engine performance from engineering. Nova maintained a neutral expression, though inside she felt a surge of panic. Without Eliax's help, completing the modifications would be nearly impossible. As the briefing concluded, she caught the engineer's eye, and he gave an almost imperceptible nod. They would find a way. That night, while most of the crew prepared for departure, Nova slipped into the engine room for one final adjustment. To her surprise, Eliax was already there. How did you— Service tunnels, the engineer explained, holding up the critical component they needed to install, the harmonic resonator Nova had smuggled aboard. Torvak is monitoring from the primary console, but he can't see this maintenance alcove from there. Working swiftly and in near silence, they installed the resonator into the heart of the engine system, connecting it to the quantum matrix Nova had reconfigured. The final calibration would have to wait until they were underway, when the engines were fully powered. It's done, Nova whispered as they sealed the access panel. Now we just need the right moment to activate it. And if it fails? Eliax asked, compound eyes reflecting the dim emergency lighting. Nova touched the small pendant she wore, her grandfather's quantum calculator, the only personal item he'd left her besides his research. It won't fail. Launch preparations began at dawn. Nova took her position in the pilot's chair, running through pre-flight checks with meticulous attention to detail. Lieutenant Sora occupied the communications station to her right, while the silent mechanoid quartermaster managed cargo systems from a rear console. Torvak stood behind Nova, watching her every move with cold reptilian eyes. Primary systems check complete, Nova reported. Artificial gravity stable, life support optimal, navigation systems aligned. She kept her voice professional, betraying none of the excitement she felt. Requesting departure clearance. Lieutenant Sora relayed the request, and moments later, the docking clamps released with a reverberating clunk that echoed through the hull. Nova eased the thrusters to quarter power, guiding the ungainly freighter away from the station with a precision that even Torvak couldn't criticize. Once clear of the docking ring's gravitational field, Nova plotted their course to Relay Station Epsilon. Course laid in. Transitioning to main propulsion, she engaged the primary engines, feeling the familiar vibration as the gravitational drive activated. The ship's outdated systems groaned in protest, but the modifications she and Eliax had made were already evident in the smoother power curve and reduced oscillation. Torvak frowned at his monitoring console. Engine efficiency exceeds historical parameters by 22%. Explain. Proper calibration, Nova replied, keeping her eyes on the navigation display. The system was running with significant harmonics out of phase. The chief engineer made a disbelieving sound, but said nothing more. 6 hours into their journey, he finally left the bridge to conduct a physical inspection of other systems, leaving Nova alone with Lieutenant Sora and the silent quartermaster. He's obsessed with catching you in violation. Sora observed once Torvak was gone, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to a gossipy lavender. I've never seen him so focused on a subordinate. Nova adjusted their course slightly to avoid a debris field. I'm the first Terran pilot assigned to his ship. He doesn't trust my species. It's more than that, Sora said, her voice dropping. Your assignment came directly from Fleet Admiral Veros, bypassing normal protocols. Rumors say you're being groomed for something bigger. Nova glanced at the Luminari in surprise. I didn't request special treatment. Yet here you are, Sora replied, her patterns now showing curiosity. On the least desirable assignment in the fleet, with a chief engineer who detests humans, carrying critical supplies through pirate territory. Doesn't that strike you as odd? Before Nova could respond, the ship's sensors blared a proximity alert. 3 vessels had appeared at the edge of their scanning range, approaching rapidly on an intercept course. Unidentified vessels at bearing 047, range decreasing, Nova reported, activating the tactical display. Configuration matches known pirate vessels operating in this sector. Lieutenant Sora immediately opened a channel. Unidentified vessels. This is Aurelian Defense Fleet Freighter Vanguard Rust on official supply mission. State your intentions. The response came through clear and mocking. Vanguard Rust, this is Captain Rise of the free vessel Nexus Talon. Prepare to be boarded. Your cargo now belongs to us. Sora cut the transmission. Pirates, as expected, heavily armed, judging by their engine signatures. Nova calculated their options. The freighter carried minimal defensive capabilities, enough to deter casual raiders, but not a coordinated attack by 3 vessels. Their only advantage was the modified engine, still operating at standard parameters. Alert Torvak, she ordered Sora. Tell the quartermaster to secure essential systems. I'm going to try to outrun them. The luminary's patterns flashed in disbelief. Outrun them? In this ship? Nova's hands flew across the navigation controls. Just trust me. She plotted a course through a nearby asteroid field, a dangerous maneuver for a vessel of their size, but one that might give them an advantage. As she adjusted their heading, the first shots from the pirate vessels streaked past their hull, a warning that the next would not miss. Chief Engineer Torvak burst onto the bridge, scales flushed dark with anger. Pirates! I knew this mission was cursed from the moment they assigned a Terran pilot. Save the criticism, Nova snapped, pushing the engines harder as they approached the asteroid field. I need engine control transferred to my console. Absolutely not, Torvak replied. Standard protocol dictates. Another shot hit their shields, causing the lights to flicker and alarms to wail throughout the ship. Shields at 60%, the quartermaster reported in his first words of the journey. Cannot sustain direct hits. We're not outrunning them on standard protocols, Nova insisted, turning to face Torvak directly. Transfer engine control now, or we lose the ship. Lieutenant Sora's console beeped urgently. They're deploying boarding craft. 3 minutes to intercept. Torvak hesitated, his reptilian features unreadable. Finally, he growled. Transferred. But if you destroy my ship, Terran, I'll ensure you never fly again. Nova immediately accessed the engine controls, bypassing the safety protocols she and Eliax had built into the system. Everyone, secure yourselves. This might get rough. With the pirates closing in and the asteroid field looming ahead, Nova activated the harmonic resonator. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The ship lurched forward as the quantum matrix aligned with the resonator's frequency, creating a harmonic field that amplified the gravitational drive's output exponentially. The bridge crew was pressed back into their seats as the Vanguard Rust accelerated to speeds it was never designed to achieve. The hull creaked in protest, and warning indicators flashed across every console. "What have you done?" Torvak shouted over the roar of the straining engines. Nova didn't answer, focusing instead on guiding the suddenly responsive ship into the asteroid field. Behind them, the pirate vessels attempted to follow, but lacked the maneuverability that the harmonic drive provided. One clipped an asteroid and spun away, its engines flickering offline. "Shields at 40%, the quartermaster announced. "Hull integrity holding." Nova threaded the freighter through gaps barely wider than their hull, using the asteroids as cover while maintaining their impossible speed. The pirates fell further behind, their weapons fire becoming sporadic and inaccurate. "They're breaking pursuit," Lieutenant Sora reported, her bioluminescence pulsing with excitement. "I don't believe it. We're actually outrunning them." Once clear of the asteroid field, Nova maintained their enhanced speed for another 20 minutes to ensure the pirates couldn't reacquire them. Finally, she deactivated the harmonic resonator, allowing the engines to return to standard operation. The sudden deceleration sent a shudder through the ship. Silence fell on the bridge. Nova ran a diagnostic check on all systems, noting with satisfaction that despite the strain, the modifications had performed perfectly. The harmonic resonator had increased their speed by over 400% while actually reducing energy consumption. "Damage report," Torvak demanded, his voice oddly subdued. "Minor stress fractures in the outer hull plating," Nova reported. "All critical systems functioning within parameters." The chief engineer moved to her console, examining the readouts with disbelief. "This is impossible. The power curve shows increased output with decreased energy consumption." He looked at Nova, suspicion warring with reluctant admiration. "What did you do to my engines?" "I implemented harmonic resonance technology," she replied simply. "My grandfather's design, integrated with your existing systems." "Unauthorized modifications," Torvak hissed, but without his earlier venom. "That would have destroyed any normal engine." "Bill, but not this one," Nova countered. The Vanguard series was accidentally built with a quantum matrix configuration that's perfectly suited to harmonic amplification. No one realized it until now. Lieutenant Sora's patterns had shifted to deep blue admiration. "You knew this would work? That's why you accepted this assignment?" Nova nodded. "I requested this ship specifically because of its engine design. The Academy thought they were punishing me with the worst assignment possible, but they actually gave me exactly what I needed." Torvak straightened, conflicting emotions playing across his reptilian features. "I should report this immediately. Protocol demands it." "Of course," Nova agreed. "After we deliver our cargo to Relay Station Epsilon, I believe we're ahead of schedule now." The remainder of their journey passed without incident. Nova monitored the engines continuously, gathering data on the harmonic resonator's performance for her report. Torvak divided his time between the bridge and engineering, studying the modifications with growing interest rather than hostility. They reached Relay Station Epsilon 18 hours ahead of schedule, a new record for the route. As they docked with the station, Lieutenant Sora received a priority transmission from Aurelian Fleet Command. "It's for you," she told Nova, transferring it to the main screen. The scaled face of Fleet Admiral Veros appeared, his ceremonial head crest extended in what Nova recognized as a gesture of respect. Cadet Maris, reports of your encounter with pirates have already reached command. Sensor data from pursuing Aurelian vessels indicates your freighter achieved speeds previously thought impossible for a vessel of that class. Nova straightened in her chair. Yes, Admiral. I implemented modifications based on harmonic resonance technology. Without authorization, Torvak interjected, stepping into view. Which saved your ship and its critical cargo, the Admiral countered. Sometimes innovation requires breaking protocol. Chief Engineer, a lesson your species has been reluctant to learn. Torvak's scales flushed, but he remained silent. Upon your return, Admiral Veros continued, you will present your modifications to the Fleet Engineering Division. If they prove as effective as preliminary data suggests, we will implement them across the fleet. His crest fluttered slightly. You've honored your grandfather's legacy. Cadet Maris. Elias would be proud. The transmission ended, leaving Nova stunned. You knew my grandfather? Torvak shifted uncomfortably. Many knew of Elias Maris. His theories were ahead of their time, too advanced for the Aurelian hierarchy to acknowledge. Came a new voice. Eliax emerged from a maintenance hatch, mandibles clicking in what Nova now recognized as amusement. That's why they assigned you here. Pilot Maris, the Admiral was testing you. Testing me? Nova repeated. Lieutenant Sora's pattern swirled with sudden understanding. Of course. They gave you a ship with the right basic architecture, but in terrible condition. If you could see its potential and realize your grandfather's theories, then I was worthy of leading the next phase of fleet propulsion development. Nova finished, understanding dawning. And if I failed, no one would notice another rusted freighter limping along forgotten supply routes. Torvak snorted. A typically convoluted Aurelian approach. My species excels at bureaucratic tests. But you didn't know? Nova asked him. The chief engineer's scales darkened in what might have been embarrassment. I was told only to report on your competence and adherence to protocol. I was thorough in my criticism, which I systematically ignored, Nova said with a small smile. To our benefit, Eliax added, the modifications you implemented could revolutionize interstellar travel. Energy requirements have been the limiting factor in long-range exploration. The quartermaster, who had remained silent throughout, finally spoke. Cargo transfer complete. Station commander requests your presence for formal recognition ceremony. Nova rose from her pilot's chair, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was after the ordeal. I think we've all earned some recognition. Even you, Chief Engineer. Torvak made a dismissive gesture, but his posture had lost its rigid hostility. Your modifications require proper documentation. I will begin the process while you attend to diplomatic functions. As Nova and the others prepared to board the station, Torvak called after her. Pilot Maris. She turned, raising an eyebrow. Your grandfather's theories, the chief engineer said stiffly. I may have been premature in dismissing them. The harmonic resonator design is elegant. Coming from Torvak, it was practically effusive praise. Nova nodded in acknowledgement. Thank you, Chief Engineer. Perhaps you'd like to assist with the technical specifications for the fleet-wide implementation. The reptilian officer's scales rippled with surprise. You would include me after my opposition. Good engineering requires diverse perspectives, Nova replied, even critical ones. For the first time, Torvak's expression softened into something approaching respect. I would be interested in such collaboration. The recognition ceremony at Relay Station Epsilon was brief but heartfelt. The station commander, a grizzled Vulpian with cybernetic enhancements, personally thanked Nova and her crew for delivering the critical supplies that would save numerous lives. News of their daring escape from pirates had already spread throughout the station, and Nova found herself surrounded by curious officers eager to hear about the ship's mysterious speed. After the ceremony, Lieutenant Sora approached Nova in the station's observation lounge, her bioluminescent patterns glowing a thoughtful purple. "Fleet Command has transmitted new orders," she said, handing Nova a data crystal. "We're to proceed directly to Central Engineering Division after resupply. Your modifications are being given priority evaluation." Nova turned the crystal in her hand, feeling a sense of vindication wash over her. "I thought the bureaucracy would take months to respond." Apparently, outrunning pirates and setting a new sector speed record accelerates the process, Sora replied, her patterns shifting to amused yellow. "There's something else. Torvak has formally withdrawn his complaints against your conduct." "Really?" Nova couldn't hide her surprise. The Luminary's patterns rippled. "More than that. He's submitted a commendation for your innovative approach to critical mission parameters." "I've never seen him reverse position so completely." Nova smiled. "Sometimes seeing is believing, especially for species as traditional as the Aurelians." They were interrupted by the station's alert system. A message scrolled across the observation lounge's information displays. "Attention all personnel. Prototype vessel, Harmonic Dawn, arriving for resupply. Docking Bay 1 restricted." Sora's patterns flashed with excitement. "The Harmonic Dawn? That's Admiral Veros's personal research vessel. No one below command rank has seen it." Curiosity piqued. Nova moved to the observation window that overlooked the main docking area. A sleek vessel was approaching, unlike any design she'd seen before. Its hull seemed to shimmer slightly, as though the very fabric of space distorted around it. "Beautiful, isn't she?" said a voice behind them. Nova turned to find Admiral Veros himself standing in the lounge entrance, his ceremonial crest fully extended in formal greeting. "Admiral," Nova said, snapping to attention, "I didn't expect to meet you in person." Veros approached the window, gazing at his ship with evident pride. "When I received the telemetry from your modified freighter, I changed my itinerary. Some developments warrant personal attention." His reptilian eyes shifted to Nova. "The Harmonic Dawn was built using principles similar to those your grandfather proposed, but our engineers could never achieve the efficiency your improvised system demonstrated. We've been missing something fundamental." "The resonance frequency," Nova suggested. "It's unique to each quantum matrix configuration. The formula isn't universal. It has to be calibrated to the specific harmonic signature of the ship's core." Admiral Veros's crest rippled with interest. "That wasn't in your grandfather's published research." "It wasn't in his published work," Nova agreed, touching the pendant she wore. "But it was in his personal notes, which he left to me." The Admiral studied her for a long moment. "Walk with me. Pilot Maris." As they strolled through the station corridors, Veros explained how the Aurelian fleet had been secretly developing harmonic drive technology for years, based partly on Elias Maris's theories, but progress had stalled without the key insight Nova had just revealed. "Your assignment to the Vanguard Rust wasn't punishment," the Admiral confirmed. "It was opportunity. That vessel's outdated quantum matrix configuration made it ideal for testing harmonic resonance principles." "You could have simply asked for my grandfather's research," Nova pointed out. Veros's scales shifted in what might have been embarrassment. Bureaucracy, politics, interspecies tensions, they all complicated matters. It was simpler to create a scenario where you would demonstrate the technology yourself. His crest lowered slightly. Perhaps not our most straightforward approach. They reached a secure briefing room where Chief Engineer Torvak, Engineer Eliax, and several high-ranking fleet officers waited. A holographic projection of the Vanguard Rust's engine modifications rotated above the central table. "Pilot Maris," Veros announced. "I'm appointing you to lead Project Harmonic, a joint initiative to implement your grandfather's technology across the fleet, beginning with our exploration vessels." Nova blinked in surprise. "Sir, I'm just a cadet." "A cadet who accomplished what our senior engineers could not." The Admiral replied, "Rank is being adjusted accordingly." He handed her a data crystal. "Your new commission as full pilot, with appropriate clearances." Torvak stepped forward, his earlier hostility completely gone. "I've taken the liberty of documenting your modifications in proper Aurelian format," he said, displaying a comprehensive technical manual on his datapad. "With appropriate credit to your grandfather's theoretical foundation." Nova scanned the documentation, impressed by the thoroughness. "Thank you, Chief Engineer. This will accelerate implementation significantly." "There's one more thing," Admiral Veros said. "Your current vessel is being reassigned." Nova felt a pang of disappointment. Despite its flaws, she'd grown attached to the Vanguard Rust. "To the Advanced Propulsion Development Division," the Admiral continued, "as the testbed for the next generation of harmonic drive systems. You'll need a more suitable vessel for your new role." He activated a display screen showing a sleek ship in dry dock. Its lines were elegant yet practical, with distinctive Terran design influences merged with Aurelian efficiency. On its hull, freshly painted, was the name Harmonic Vanguard and, below it, Nova's pilot insignia. "Your new command," Veros said. "The first of a new class, incorporating both your modifications and our most advanced technology." Nova stared at the image, momentarily speechless. Finally, she found her voice. "When can we begin the integration process?" "Your engineer has already started," Veros replied, nodding toward Eliax, who clicked his mandibles in confirmation. "The harmonic resonator design has been improved," the insectoid engineer explained, "using principles from both your grandfather's research and Aurelian quantum theory. Preliminary simulations suggest efficiency improvements of 600% over standard drives." Lieutenant Sora, who had joined them in the briefing room, studied the ship's specifications with glowing appreciation. "The communications array is state-of-the-art, range and clarity beyond anything in the current fleet. A fitting vessel for exploring the possibilities of harmonic drive technology." Admiral Veros said, "The Cyrex cluster contains numerous anomalies that have resisted traditional exploration methods. Your ship will be the first to investigate them properly." Nova looked around at the assembled officers, Torvak with his newfound respect, Eliax with his engineering enthusiasm, Sora with her luminous excitement, and Admiral Veros with his vision of a transformed fleet. In just 4 cycles, she had gone from ridiculed Terran cadet to respected innovator. "When do we depart?" she asked. 3 weeks later, Nova stood on the bridge of the Harmonic Vanguard, completing pre-launch checks with practiced efficiency. The ship hummed with potential around her, systems perfectly calibrated and crew positions filled with the best specialists from across the fleet. Chief Engineer Torvak had requested reassignment to the project, bringing his meticulous attention to detail and growing appreciation for unconventional approaches. Engineer Eliax had been promoted to Senior Propulsion Specialist, his intimate knowledge of harmonic systems proving invaluable. Lieutenant Sora had joined as Communications Officer, her natural diplomatic abilities complementing her technical skills. As Nova settled into the pilot's chair, designed specifically for human ergonomics, she noticed a small package on the console. Inside was her grandfather's quantum calculator pendant, now mounted in a frame with his original harmonic resonance equations etched beneath it. A note accompanied it. For the bridge of the harmonic vanguard, may it remind all who serve that innovation comes from unexpected sources. Admiral Veros? Nova smiled and mounted the frame beside her station. Then she opened the shipwide communication channel. All departments report readiness for departure, she ordered. Feeling the comfortable weight of command, the responses came promptly, each section confirming optimal status. The last to report was Torvak from engineering. Harmonic drive system calibrated and ready. Pilot Maris, the chief engineer announced with none of his former disdain. Theoretical maximum now exceeds initial projections by 42%. Acknowledged, Chief Engineer. Nova replied, prepare for harmonic initiation sequence. She turned to Lieutenant Sora at Communications. Request departure clearance from Aurelian Command. The luminary's patterns glowed confident blue as she relayed the request. Moments later, she announced, clearance granted. Admiral Veros sends his personal regards and expectations for revolutionary discoveries. Nova's fingers danced across the controls, feeling the responsive systems react to her commands. The harmonic vanguard detached from its docking clamps with barely a tremor, maneuvering away from the station with a grace that belied its considerable size. Once clear of traffic lanes, Nova engaged the standard drive, accelerating smoothly toward the outer markers. The bridge crew watched in anticipation as she prepared to activate the harmonic system that had evolved from her grandfather's theories and her own innovations. Course plotted for the Cyrex anomaly field, she announced. Harmonic drive engaging in 3, 2, 1. Nova activated the system, and the stars outside the viewports blurred as the harmonic vanguard leapt forward at unprecedented speed. The ship moved with perfect stability, the harmonics singing through its structure like a perfectly tuned instrument. On the command deck of the Aurelian Defense Fleet Academy, Admiral Veros watched the vessel's trajectory on the strategic display. Beside him, a junior officer whistled in amazement. They've already broken all existing speed records, the officer reported, and the efficiency curve is still climbing. Veros nodded in satisfaction. A reminder, Lieutenant, that we should judge capabilities by performance, not preconceptions. He gestured to the rapidly moving signal that represented the harmonic vanguard. The aliens laughed when that pilot arrived. They're not laughing now. Aboard her ship, Nova Maris guided the vessel toward unexplored regions, her grandfather's equations humming through the drive system he had only dreamed of building. Behind her, a crew that had once doubted now followed with complete confidence. Ahead lay discoveries that would transform their understanding of space itself. The Vanguard Rust, once ridiculed as obsolete, had become the prototype for a revolution, and Nova, once mocked as the unwelcome Terran, now led the way into a harmonically enhanced future where the boundaries between species mattered less than the innovations they could achieve together. As the ship accelerated to speeds once thought impossible, Nova smiled at her grandfather's framed equations. "You were right," she whispered. "Sometimes the oldest foundations support the newest frontiers." The harmonic vanguard streaked onward, leaving doubts and limitations far behind.